Chainsaw Crew is brought to you by Headquarters PT, your destination to the Northwest's best way to help you feel great and play your best. Whether you are recovering from an injury, training for a race, or looking to improve your golf game, HQPT has your back. From weekend warriors to NFL pros like Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp, HQPT is here for you. Visit www.headquarterspt.com to get started. Welcome back to Chainsaw Crew, y'all. It is just me tonight, Rob. Josh is a little bit under the weather. He drank as much tea as he possibly could this morning to try to get going for tonight. He was questionable coming in, downgraded to doubtful, downgraded to out. His sore throat just couldn't get over the hump for us. So it's just going to be me tonight. I'm going to try to keep it short for you guys. But if you're a listener of this program, you know I like to ramble, and I apologize. But there's a lot to talk about. Not a lot of good. I will be honest with you, but hey, make sure you're following us on X, on TikTok, Facebook. Find us on YouTube, subscribe to the page, and download the podcast. It'll do us a huge favor. And also check out Headquarters PT. So we have a lot of things going on right now, and I kind of want to lead this off with Oregon State men's basketball as they dropped 3 in a row at the U.S. Virgin Islands in the Paradise Jam to Evansville, Iona, and UMass. We talked beforehand last week about this program and being honest about them and just saying they're not a very good basketball team, right? And I think when it comes down to it, they were going to drop a couple of games in this Paradise Jam. I think we all kind of agreed on that. Even though with the less than stellar competition, it just felt like they were going to drop a couple because they're not playing in McGill Coliseum. I didn't expect them to drop all 3. This is just, it's embarrassing, quite frankly. And the bigs are struggling, man, on defense, especially, just really badly. And the 3 ball is just not falling for the boys. Okay, so look, this is how it breaks down. Opening game against Evansville, OSU from 3, 6 for 25. They went 22 of 59 from the field, and they lose by 4. That's definitely the best game I thought they played of the 3. Now you look at Iona, they did have a 19-point lead. You definitely should win that game, but you go 7 of 23 from 3. Unfortunately, you go 21 of 36 from the stripe. And that's honestly a little bit shocking with this roster that they've had because they've shot from the free throw line pretty well, especially with Josiah Lake with JoJo Lake on the roster. They've been a very solid free throw shooting team. Against Iona, they just completely lost control of the stripe, and they lose by 7 in double OT. That was a really disappointing and heartbreaking game because they were playing so well. They had these spurts of playing really well for a handful of minutes, and then they just can't withstand opponents' runs, and they just don't know how to come back from them most of the time. And it's just really been their downfall. And they're playing a lot of different guys. Wayne has no idea what his lineup is. He's claiming like, yeah, we have some injuries, but it doesn't feel like that's the main reason. It feels like he doesn't know his combination of players off the bench that he wants to bring in. And then today against UMass this morning, they gave up 40 points in the paint, 20 second chance points given up compared to just having 2 second chance points on your own end. And they went 9 of 28 from 3, 12 of 17 from the stripe, and then they had 16 turnovers. All of that leads to a loss. You're not going to beat anybody with those kind of shooting numbers and rebounding numbers. It's just, it's brutal watching this team right now. And the fact that a lot of people in this fan base don't really have a single care for Oregon State men's basketball is a major problem. Wayne Tinkle should not be the coach anymore. Let's be honest here. He should be investigated for point shaving, if anything. The guys were up 65-61 with a few minutes to go, and they don't score the rest of the game. They're down 8 with 20 seconds today against UMass, and they have the ball for the last 20 seconds of the game and don't score. So that was interesting. There are certain disadvantages for sure for this basketball program, 100%. It's always been tough to win in Corvallis post Ralph Miller, right? We've kind of all seen the coaches who come and go through Oregon State, and they've struggled. It's been hard. It's not an easy job. The losing of the Pac-12 brand is detrimental to an already hard recruiting process at Oregon State. And Wayne Tinkle is not the guy to dig out of this hole, I don't think. I think he's been here long enough, and he showed that he's really not capable of doing that. Wayne is at fault for holding that shovel, for sure. And a few other people have been holding that shovel, too, for him. So it isn't entirely on him. He didn't ask to be demoted to the WCC, for sure. However, the new PAC is going to be much more difficult with Gonzaga, with San Diego State, Utah State. I'm sure Boise State will have a bounce-back year as well in the future. And today, man, his post-game interview with Mike Parker was just really concerning. He kept on saying it's early. We have a lot of good that came out of these 3 games. And quite frankly, what good is coming out of losing to Evansville, Iona, and UMass? These are three teams that are just not very good, and they're not ranked high in Ken whatsoever. Iona usually might be a tournament team every now and then. UMass, not really. Evansville, yeah, they knocked Ralph Miller out of his last game ever, but like that's not a program you should be losing to in the Virgin Islands, guys. It's early. It's early. He kept on saying it's just like losing to these three schools does not equal anything good. And he kept on mentioning how his guys don't understand how to play with toughness without fouling. He mentioned how they need to get a tailbone into their hip and break their hip to send a message. He said break their hip on the boards. It's a interesting tactic in a post-game presser. He must think nobody is listening to these things, but hey, Wayne, I was. Hey, Mike, I was listening, okay? And that was an off-putting comment because, I mean, it's on the coaching staff. And Wayne didn't do a very good job replacing Biggs like we mentioned last week. They just struggled down low, and UMass took it to him down there. It was bad. It was ugly. It was like an automatic bucket, just letting guys free, getting free dunks, free layups. It was just it's frustrating basketball, man. And Scott Barnes does not have the balls to fire Wayne Tinkle this season. He's going to have to wait out the contract probably. He might at the end of the season make a change. Would kind of make sense, going into the new conference because the buyout will be much cheaper if you wait until the end of the season. I think it'd be less than $1 million to pay out the rest of his contract, which probably more doable than right now. It's probably closer to maybe $2 million if you were to fire him now. But the brand of OSU men's basketball right now is just atrocious, and it's embarrassing. Not once have I watched a Wayne Tinkle team and thought, this team is well coached, even during the two tournament seasons when they had, and he just ran off the backs of Trace Tinkle, his son, and then GP2, and then Stevie and Ethan. He has done maybe 1 to 2 good developmental jobs, and Drew Eubanks and Roman Silva. Other than that, I mean, he's just been banking on elite guard play, and just his son was the best scorer that Oregon State will ever have, and they made the tournament once under him. He was injured for the game. It's just it hasn't lined up at all, dude. I it's just been so frustrating just watching this athletic department let this basketball program just kind of be what it is. I'd rather get a root canal than watch these guys play basketball, dude. It is absolutely brutal out there. Losing these 3 games the way they did is just it's classic Wayne Tinkle. Away from Gil Coliseum, you just play poorly. And you don't hit down, you don't knock down shots. Malcolm Christie played great today against UMass. Why is he not playing more? We mentioned that last week. He hasn't gotten a ton of minutes. That's the kind of guy who needs to get into a rhythm. Maybe he did against UMass. Maybe he's the guy who should be playing because I see Des White and Isaiah C. just constantly making mistakes, game causing errors, mistakes that will just lead to losses. Isaiah C. had a decent scoring game, but then he's missing free throws late. He's turning the ball over. It's just some of the things you see are just like these are some of the dumbest plays you'll watch from a college basketball team. It's frustrating, man. And I'm wearing an Oregon State basketball shirt right now, but that's for the women, not for the men. The women did drop a tough one against Colorado State, but the men, I just don't see the direction. They don't play good team defense. They don't rebound well. They haven't shot it well. I don't see the direction. They have 5 games coming up at home. I'm sure they'll win maybe 4 of them. It's because they're at home and they're not against stellar competition, but I just don't love the direction of men's basketball. And I know a lot of you guys don't really care. You're just kind of waiting for the announcement of Wayne Tinkle moving on to finally maybe show some interest in men's basketball. But I'm going to keep trying to watch them because the way they lose is honestly comical. It can be really funny at times. But let's talk about some other negative things here. The football team plays one more game. It'll be the last one. And it's PAC 2 Part 2, baby. A lot of people still making fun of us, but it is what it is this year. It's the last time we'll probably have to do this, hopefully, fingers crossed. But the Beavs open as a 13.5-point underdog, and they are right now plus 425 to win outright. So I expect that line to move a little bit more towards the Wazoo side. I think it could get to 14.5. We'll see. Wazoo is obviously a much better team at home. They only dropped their Washington game at home this year, and Oregon State just can't win there. It's just been a massive issue since 2013 when that was the last time they beat Washington State on the road. And Rob Akey had his press conference today, probably his last pregame press conference as an Oregon State coach. And does Tristan Tia start? It's a fair question from the media, but it's also funny that Rob Akey kind of jokingly answered about it, and he's like, "You guys have to make up your mind because before you're asking me if Jabari Johnson's going to start, now you're asking me if Tristan T is going to start." He's like, "I might start all three at the same time." It's funny. I think he's just poking fun at the quarterback situation that obviously Coach Akey didn't sign up for. Right? It's not his fault that Malik didn't work out. It's not his fault that Jabari Johnson can't throw the ball further than 10 yards. It's not his fault. It essentially is his call to start the quarterback, but Rob Akey hasn't worked with the offense all year. He's a defensive line guy. He came in here to be an associate head coach and help the defensive line out. And then for a couple of days, he helped out the special teams, but he wasn't here to work on offense, obviously. So this isn't on him. I do think you have to start Tristan Tia, though, because if you start Jabari or Malik and then go down the line again like you did against Tulsa, I might go insane. You start Tia, and if he struggles against, we'll get to in a little bit here, a good Wazoo defense, then you can try Jabari. Then you can try Malik. Just to try to get a spark going. Maybe try to get a little light to that fire. But you do not let Tristan Tia be the third guy again. That's just it's going to be too late by that point, like we saw against Tulsa. It's just too late for that. And if you really want a shot to win this game, I think you go with that rotation. If it's Tristan, great. Give him 4 to 5 series to get it going. And if he doesn't put any points on the board, okay, then we can make a move. Okay, because at this point, like, who cares? You're 2-9, staring at 2-10. You got to give the kid a shot, dude. You're not going to burn any red shirts. We're past that point. This will be his 4th game. He's fine. So, and Coach Akey, like I said, his last press conference, probably with Oregon State coaching, as an Oregon State coach, he basically said his goodbyes today in his presser, and he was talking about his next opportunities, his appreciation for Oregon State, saying how cool of a place it was. And honestly, it was a little sad and surreal because I love Rob as a guy, and I think he'd make a really good DC somewhere in the G6, maybe at a lower power school. He could be a position coach. I do think he's run into an issue here dealing with players who may have lost their edge, especially playing against these less than stellar teams that they've faced. I think getting up for Wazoo a handful of weeks ago at home in Corvallis, it's Military Appreciation Weekend. I think that's a good enough reason for the guys to be like, all right, hey, familiar opponent. We know that logo. We've played these guys plenty of times. This is a game you can get up for. And then you follow it with Sam Houston and Tulsa, where it's like, I don't see the point of playing these games hard, you know. And obviously, the bare minimum for a Division I FBS athlete should be to play hard, right? But I understand, you know, you see the Sam Houston team coming in winless. It's hard to get up for those games, especially when your season is essentially done. And then going on the road to Tulsa in front of maybe, 400 people. I get it. I get why there's not a lot of energy right now with this football program. And like I said last week, man, if you're not getting up for Rob Akey to play and if he's not motivating you, then what's going on? What are we doing here? It's just one of those things where they're young men, and their season hasn't gone the way that they planned. And the lack of competition across from them isn't exactly motivating for them. And I think that's what Rob has run into. I get it, man, but at the same time, like, there's a standard. And like Derek Ray said, man, the standard will always be the standard. But what is the standard right now? I don't really know. But the standard is the standard. But Rob Akey, man, I hope he lands somewhere. I hope he does great. I'll be rooting for him wherever he goes because he's a great dude. Infectious voice. Just not a winner, but a good dude. Just a good. He seems like a good players coach, and we'll see what happens with him. I appreciate his efforts. I appreciate his slight turnaround. At least they got a couple of dubs under his belt, which were desperately needed at that time for this fan base. But as we've seen these last couple of games, it's just not going to be for him, and it's not going to be for this fan base. And that's life. That's ball. Wazoo, on the other hand, coming off another really tough road loss here against a really good G6 team in James Madison. They already got their 10th win. Are they a playoff team? I don't think so, but they're a really good football team. And going all the way over there to play them again for Wazoo, going across the country to play a game, tough, man. And again, Wazoo was right in there, right in the thick of it. Could have won the game. They kind of salted away, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Cougs are 5-6 this year. Okay, year one under Jimmy Rogers has been definitely a roller coaster. Their wins are really not anything to write home about. The loss to Oregon State obviously really sticks out. But personally, I think Jimmy Rogers has done a really nice job turning over the roster into a really competitive bunch. They play good team defense, man. Always hustling, gang tackling. They had their early mishaps for sure against Washington and North Texas, but it turns out nobody in the G6 can slow down North Texas. They're a machine. They could potentially be a playoff team. But sometimes they run into some penalty issues. But overall, man, that defense travels and they play hard. It seems to be their identity so far in the Rodgers era. And it makes sense because their defense just embodies blue collar right now. And it's mainly made up of guys who used to be FCS players, outside of a couple of guys who came from New Mexico State. Look at Beaverton native Parker McKenna at linebacker. He leads the team in tackles. He came from Portland State, where he was just a 2 star, turned to a 3 star as a transfer. Now he's leading an FBS team in tackles as a linebacker. That's impressive. Then you look at Tucker Large, their safety. He had no ratings and turned into a 3 star transfer from South Dakota State. Same thing with Matt Durrance, Colby Humphrey, Caleb Francel, Anthony Polano, Kale Reeder. They all go from South Dakota State. The list goes on for them. So they got a bunch of gritty former FCS dudes who played for Coach Rogers before. And then they got a couple of defensive line guys from New Mexico State. It's a gritty group, man. And we saw it already in Corvallis. They play good team defense. It's hard to move the ball consistently on them. Really, just two big plays against them was the difference in the game a few weeks ago in Corvallis. It was the throw to Taz Reddix from Malik, and then it was the big run from Hankerson. Other than that, the Oregon State offense did zilch against that defense. So again, it comes down to passing. Passing the ball down the field will open up the run game, it feels like, against this Washington State defense because they're pretty solid up front. So is that Malik? Is that Tristan? I don't know because it's definitely not Jabari Johnson. We know what he can do and we know what he can't do. And we saw him already against Wazoo really struggle. I don't want necessarily to watch that again. I don't think Wazoo will have any issues whatsoever if Jabari Johnson is playing quarterback. Unless you have some crazy, nice set runs for him to actually succeed, I don't see it happening with him. On the other side, Zevi Eckhouse, their quarterback, he's a nice stop-gap quarterback for them. But I don't think he's the answer necessarily for Wazoo. They didn't really know beforehand going into this season if he was really going to be the guy. He really had to earn it. He's only thrown for over 225 yards once this season, and that was in their loss to UW. He also threw 2 picks in that game. He's had 4 multiple interception games. He's a decent runner, but he's just had games where he's gone completely quiet with his legs too. The run of incredible throwing Wazoo quarterbacks seems to be over with Zevi, but he's kind of a gamer. He sticks his neck out for his teammates and he's out there competing every single week. He's not going to blow you away with anything that he does, but he's just going to go out there and run his offense. And if he's taking care of the football, he's a fine quarterback. But that's just been his issue. He'll throw the ball to the wrong team a little bit too much. And if he's not running the ball well, he's not as dynamic as he could be. And we saw Oregon State really bottle him up as a runner last time. And they did a great job. Just the big thing from the defensive line with the running quarterback is you essentially just have to come like a box, right? You got to keep him inside the pocket because if he gets out of it, anything can happen, especially against our defensive backs. You got to keep him in the pocket and make him a thrower because we saw when he's in the pocket, he will struggle. He'll throw the ball to Jaheim Patterson a couple of times, which is great for us, right? But when he got out and made a couple of plays, he's a runner, man. And sometimes they'll run zone with him like we saw a few weeks ago as well. So he can do some things, and I think he's definitely a lot more comfortable at home. But I think the Beavers did a great job. And film last time, this is going to be such an interesting second matchup. It really is. It's like the NFL. It's like playing another conference member in the championship game, for the second time this year. You already seen them once. You pretty much know what they're going to do. Nothing really changes from last time to this time. It's really just about execution. And if the Beaver defense can come out there with the same type of fire they did in the first time they played Wazoo, I like our chances. But unfortunately, we didn't see any fire from the defense against Tulsa. Didn't really see it a ton against Sam Houston towards the end of the game, but towards actually the beginning of the game. The end of the game, the defense played great against Sam Houston, but against Tulsa, just lifeless. I really hope this bye week kind of woke up a few guys to make them realize a lot of these older guys too, this is maybe their last college football game. It's a lot of these guys' last game in a Beaver uniform. Does that mean anything to these guys? I think we're about to find out, and I'm curious to see how it rolls out, but we'll see. But on the Wazoo side, man, year two for Jimmy Rogers is going to be really interesting because this is going to lead into what Oregon State might want to do with their head football coach. Okay. An FCS coach coming in year one is pretty simple, right? It's a simple job at first. You can bring in most of your guys from your last school who started. You can bring in all the guys who you feel like could play at the FBS level. You can bring in the guys you're comfortable with as a staff. And then you can kind of get away with what you've done this season if you're Wazoo, right? Hey, 5-6 so far. You've played Ole Miss, Virginia tough. You played James Madison tough. Yeah, you had a couple of bad days against North Texas and Washington. Came close against Idaho, which was really worrisome at the beginning of the year. But you've held yourself together overall. Pretty dominating wins against Toledo, Louisiana Tech. But does that pay the bills? Does that keep the lights on? I think year two is really interesting because look, if they keep salting away games like they've been doing on the road against these really good programs, it's going to raise even more concerns within that Washington State fan base. But from an outsider's perspective, you see what he's done, and this is like, all right, hey, year one, not that bad. They're looking at 6-6, right? You should be able to beat Oregon State at home. It's crazy that they didn't beat us the first time with the way sometimes Oregon State plays. But you slip up, it happens. You have a bad day. Year two, though, is interesting. How is he going to handle the portal this time? Because, like I said, man, year one is easy. You can just bring in the guys that you had, and you can fill up the roster and be like, okay, we're good for this year. But what do you do in year two? What does an FCS guy do in year two? He's going to have a new AD. Washington State's had some NIL issues. I know Oregon State is currently having some NIL issues. Like who is running our collective? Does Washington State really even have a collective? For an FCS guy, man, like this is big because if you want to be a big boy FBS Group of Six coach, year two is really important for your roster. You can't just get away with the same things again. And I'm really curious to see how this rolls because it's the same thing with Brent Vegan if he were to come to Oregon State, right? Yeah, I understand he's probably going to want to coach through the playoffs for the FCS. Okay. I guess that's fine if you want to go that route, right? Which Ryan Clark reported that he was at PDX and he couldn't really answer if he was here to interview for the Oregon State job. It's like, obviously he's here to interview. Okay. There's no other reason why he'd be in Portland. But if Brent Vegan were to come over from Montana State, okay, he's probably going to bring a lot of Montana State guys with him. And they just had a huge win over Montana on the road, which is great, man. If you watch that Montana State team play, which I did a little bit on Saturday, they play hard. They're a tough team, dude. They run the ball a ton. But I've also seen some Oregon State fans have the argument of they run the ball too much. There's no second dynamic to the offense. It's just run, run, run a lot. But I also think Vegan is an offensive guy. He coached Josh Allen at Wyoming. He developed him essentially at Wyoming. He was the quarterback and OC at Wyoming. So there's a little bit of a difference here between Jimmy Rogers and Brent Vegan, right? Vegan has seen a little bit of the FCS side. He's been in the Mountain West. He understands what it takes to develop at a G6 level, which is important, I think, for an Oregon State role. And I think these Oregon State fans are worried about like, he runs the ball way too much. Like it's a one-trick pony type of offense. But I think he's playing to his roster, right? Montana State, how many FCS squads have a quarterback who's just slinging all over the yard? It's hard to find sometimes. Eastern Washington seems to get some guys every now and then. But overall, I mean, like you look at Cam Ward, who was an incarnate word, he was there for a year. And that was before Cam was ultra developed, right? He was still amazingly just halfway a runner. How many FCS teams are just pocket passing, sit back there, I'm Tom Brady kind of guys, dude? It's hard to find at that level. So you play to your strengths, man. You play with what you got, and you squeeze all of that fruit to get all the juice you can. That is Brent Vegan, and I think he'd be a fine hire. But again, you might be waiting a while for him to actually step foot on campus if he really wants to coach the entire FCS playoffs again. But the other side of that is what does Brent Vegan owe Montana State? Because he coached all the way through it last year while he was definitely in talks with Washington State. It was reportedly on the 1 yard line, but talks fell through. Vegan's party said he kind of got a little bit put off by the Washington State leadership, which understandable. They fired their athletic director recently, so maybe he was right. And I think the Washington State side was he's not going to come right away. He's going to have to go through his FCS playoffs, and they made the championship game. So you can't blame Brent Vegan for wanting to finish out a season. That's the competitor in him, right? But now when you're looking at it from your own perspective, your own stance, you're like, well, I would like you here in December. I would like you here starting your job right away. Will Brent do that? I don't know. It's hard to say. And is Scott Barnes and the hiring committee going to be patient enough for him to do that? Because look, this is how it goes, right? Brent Vegan will coach the FCF playoffs. They're done. Then he'll come to Oregon State. He'll just bring most of his guys from Montana State over, and that'll be it. He'll probably get a handful of sprinklings of other guys from smaller G6 schools, maybe other FCS squads that want to come play FBS ball, and he'll put together a roster for the year one thing, just like Washington State did. Okay, has that worked out essentially for Wazoo? Yes and no. I think there's been some good. There's also been some. I mean, yeah, they're playing a bunch of FCS guys on this team. That's why they can't finish games. That's why they've fallen short on a few games. So you take the good with the bad. That would be year one. It's pretty simple right there. So it's up to Scott Barnes. And are you okay with that as a fan? If you wanted to wait a whole month for Brent Vegan, I don't know. It's really an interesting situation to be in. But again, man, Vegan's got the experience. He's anybody who coached Josh Allen the way he did is good in my book. And the way his teams play, tough and gritty, just full 60 minutes of hard-nosed football. I miss that. I do. And so what if we run the ball so much? If it works, it works. Okay? I don't care. Right now we're a zero dynamic offense, so I would take one of those two as of right now. But the last thing as we get ready for Wazoo, man, the last football game of the season of the 2025 year that has been, as you guys know, if you're an avid listener, it's just been tough, man. And if you're a Beaver fan and you're listening to this, you're a fighter through and through, man. And it's been tough. These last 2 years have been really, really tough. But it's over. After Saturday, it's over. The 2 years of purgatory are done. This independent football is clearly not for us. It's mainly a Notre Dame and UConn thing, apparently. And now we can just focus on, hey, it's done. We're going back into a conference again. It's not like it used to be, but at least it's a conference, right? We're going to be playing for a conference championship again from here on out. That, just saying that and thinking about that this week was really like a semi lift off my shoulders. I'm like, all right, dude, yeah, it's one more, right? We don't have to deal with this stupid scheduling anymore. We don't have to deal with playing these really subpar teams and also losing to them. I'm so ready for this season to be done, man. I'm excited to watch the boys one more time, and I'm excited to see Skylar Thomas play, man. Anthony Hankerson, Trent Walker. A lot of these guys are probably putting on that Beaver helmet for the very last time. So that's what it means, man. And we'll see how Rob Akey does. He's going back to the Palouse where he's very familiar. Everyone loves him up there. We'll see how it goes. Maybe they can do something absolutely crazy and break a streak and hold Wazoo out of a bowl game, which would be a nice little jab to start this friendly rivalry off into the new Pac-12. But it's one last ride, y'all. And then it is over. We can go back to being in a conference and being on regular television channels, not ESPN Plus against Tulsa and App State. I'm so excited, man. I'm whoever the coach is. We'll get to more coach talk here in a second, but whoever it is, man, I'm happy we'll be playing Pac-12 teams next year that aren't Washington State twice. My keys to the game. and I have three of them. Like I just said, it's likely your last game as a Beaver. Make it mean something. Play like your film matters. That Tulsa game didn't see a ton of effort. Just kind of saw guys going about the motions. Oh, play action. Oh, it's over my head. Oh, well. Oh, they scored in 2 plays. Oh, they scored in 4 plays. Play like your film matters because it does. If you play like crap, you put out crappy film, you're going to end up on a crappy team. That's how it is, dude. It's pretty simple in life. You get what you put in. I got to see some more effort from the guys. Way more effort and way more execution on offense, especially, too. Like I always say, like, your problems are your problems. And the third key to the game is act like you're at home. Just hey, it's a game in it's in Corvallis, it's in Reeser. We're not in Pullman. No. We're not wearing the white jerseys. Okay. Hopefully we burn the orange pants, never wear them again. But act like you're at home. Just little mind trick on yourself, just so we have to trick ourselves into playing better. Because Rob Akey after the Tulsa game was saying it doesn't really matter where you play the game, and he reiterated that today in his press conference. It doesn't really matter where you play the game; they're all the same dimension everywhere you go. But Rob, Bubba, I love you, but it does matter for Oregon State football where they play because on the road, traditionally, this football program is much worse on the road compared to at home. It's crazy. My worries to the game are we have already mailed it in after losing to Sam Houston. We saw the lack of effort against Sam Houston in the second half. We saw the lack of effort the entire game until Tristan Tia came in against Tulsa. That's what I mainly worry about. If you guys were watching Nico Taylor live on Instagram, he was saying the guys are excited for the future. He's going to play his last game at Oregon State here on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to just watching these guys one more ride. It hasn't gone your way, obviously. No one expected you to go 2-10 this year, or even 3-9, even if you win the game somehow. No one thought this would happen, except for people who hate Oregon State. Which, if you were calling this team to go 2-10, what did you know that we didn't? Are you just saying that because you hate them, or did you actually think that would happen? Because when you look at the schedule, you're like, there's no way Oregon State coming off of a 5-7 year where they were, kind of competitive, had some decent wins against power teams like Purdue, obviously not decent, but that was if we line up against Purdue right now, do we beat them? Probably not. You lined up against Washington State last year and beat them, but then you line up against Air Force and don't score. It's just been so much up and down, man. And they got one more ride with this up and down. I hope this roller coaster can end at least on a happy note for these guys because, like Rob Akey says, man, they put in a ton of work and it just hasn't worked out for them. Just to have one more ride to go well would be really, really nice. It would just put a nice little bow on this shit sandwich that we've been given these last 2 years. Just to kind of finally throw it, put it in the garbage disposal and turn it on, leave it on forever. It's over. After Saturday, it's over. One more in our last of the season. Our Hannah Grace score predictions brought to you by the Hannah Grace family, a nonprofit located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon City, Oregon. Hannah Grace is a local organization that serves foster children and children facing instability through a free music program, visitations, support, and more. Visit hannahgrace.org. Now, if Tia does not start the game and we do the exact same thing we did against Tulsa, I have a similar outcome. I have Cougs 37, Beavs 10. We make a field goal somehow. But if Tia starts the game, I think he does well. I think the Beavers still lose, but lose closer, 27-21. I think Tia has to take a lot of the snaps on Saturday, 100%. Because here's the thing about Tristan Tia. You don't have to spell him with Jabari Johnson because Tia can run the ball too. He's got decent legs. Are they as shifty and as magical as Jabari can be? Probably not. But he will give you he will get you that extra amount of yards. He will take the yards in front of him if they're there. And Malik doesn't do that. So Tia is the best of both worlds, I think, in my opinion, for this game. Just let him run, dude. He's probably not coming back unless you throw him a bag for next season to stay, which probably a good idea to at least try. Let the kid play this weekend, man. You have to. And Josh's score prediction is Beavs 24, Cougs 17, Pac 2 champs. That is incredible. If it were to happen to sweep Wazoo this year in football, it'd be so hilarious because their fans have just been a little bit salty online this year. It's been really interesting. And by the way, we said last week, hey, is there any Washington State podcast out there that wanted to team up with us? Didn't get a single reply. I don't know if there is one out there, to be honest with you. So that was interesting. But yeah, their fan base has just been kind of, a little salty this year. I understand it's tough right now to be a Beaver and Cougar fan. There's just not a lot of right things going on, especially the way Washington State has lost games this year. Both of us just got ran up and down in the Apple Cup and Civil War. It's been tough, man. And now we're looking at men's basketball. Both Wazoo and Oregon State men's basketball are abysmal, really, really bad. So I get it, but I thought we were supposed to be a friendly rivalry. I thought we were supposed to like each other. Stop fighting with us all the time. And your players on the field. Remember the last game in Corvallis was kind of chippy. A lot of unsportsmanlike conducts in that one. Maybe we'll see that again because the players got after each other, and there's a lot of fire. And I think that is what our boys need to get going again because familiarity creates rivalry. It creates just friction with two programs, right? When you see a team a lot and you lose to them once or whatever the case, you beat them last time and the other team's salty about it, they're trying to get back at you. It creates this competitive fire within you. Like I was saying earlier, you don't really have that against Sam Houston. You don't have that against Tulsa. These are teams that you have nothing, you don't know anything about them. Why do I hate this guy? I don't know. I don't even know how. I just met him today. I'm playing against him right now. But Zevi Eckhouse, I played against him a few weeks ago. That guy's an a-hole. I want to tackle him all game long. I want to put him on the ground. 6 more sacks. Let's do it. That's what we need. And I think maybe we'll see a little bit more fire from the boys. I don't know. I'm not calling it per se, but it would be nice to see the boys play with some fire, be competitive. It's okay to lose close in this one. It's totally fine. Just play harder. Find some fire. I will close with this. So the coaching carousel is spinning yet again. It just got another notch. Justin Wilcox got fired at Cal. Okay. John Canzano, a lot of other writers have reported that Oregon State and him will likely be in talks. Okay. Honestly, to me, that's fine. I think Wilcox is a fine coach. He struggled at Cal to get over the hump. They had some, decent rosters. They just couldn't get there. They never really won anything with him. They never really got over that hump of just expectation, really. Anytime they had expectation, they fell short of it. I think that was this year as well. They had a really favorable schedule. They started off hot, but they slipped up. They got shut out by San Diego State. They lose a couple of bad ACC games, and now they lost to Stanford. So they've had another just Justin Wilcox year, and he just can't get it right on the offensive side of the ball. His defenses are usually pretty good. He gets Sungapore Latele, and he's been somewhat underwhelming all year long after he darted up this Oregon State defense. After that, and he was kind of like, he's a freshman. He's learning through it, but at first it didn't seem like he was just your, regular freshman. He felt a little bit different, but turns out Oregon State defense is bad. So that's funny how that works out. But Wilcox would be an interesting talk. I think, obviously, he's a Duck, right? That's the elephant in the room here. Do you want that as an Oregon State fan? I think he's a fine coach. Would he work out at Oregon State? I think he'd be decent at the G6 level. I do think Oregon State maybe cares about football a little bit more than Cal as a university. I think both fan bases are very similar in that they're extremely passionate, and sometimes when the team's not doing so well, they don't show up. But he's interesting because he's a defensive guy. His defenses have normally been very solid. He's had a couple of down years, but normally very solid on defense. He's produced a ton of good NFL defensive backs. But what is he going to do on offense? You run down the list. He had Musgrave, then he had Harsin. He's had a ton of different offensive coordinators, and they just don't work out. But he's an interesting guy. Also, offensive guy, just got fired from the Las Vegas Raiders. Chip Kelly, another Oregon Duck connection somewhat. I think his days as a head coach are probably over. I don't know if would he even want to entertain the idea of becoming the Oregon State head coach. I think it would go obviously two ways. It's probably the same two ways that it would go with Ed Orgeron, honestly. It could either, media splash, a lot of attention at first, but does he know how to win here? Does he know how to win with less? I don't know. I mean, he couldn't do anything with the Las Vegas Raiders offense, and they're abysmal. So another guy maybe I give a call, just test the water on, but nothing too crazy there. But Justin Wilcox is interesting. The other guys that I've heard of, again, Jamarcus Shepard. Someone said he was in Portland, but it wasn't confirmed. I think it obviously it's ramping up time, and I think Scott Barnes is on a very good timeline right now. I commend him for that, getting trying to get this done as soon as possible. We might hear an announcement on Sunday or Monday after this following game here, but we'll see. I think if it's any of Vegan, Shepard, I like the thought of Jim Moore, honestly, quite a bit. The things that he's done at UConn are great. He's definitely aging, but now with the Cal job open and with the Stanford job still open, I don't know if Moore really wants a G6 role. He might want to go for a power job again. We'll see though. I think he's definitely interesting for sure. And then I don't think either of the Oregon coordinators are serious candidates. I think they were just interviewing for interview experience. But if it comes down to Vegan, if it comes down to Shepard, and then potentially Paul Christ, to me, like I last week, Brent Vegan has grown on me quite a bit. But last week, I still think Jamarcus Shepard is my number one. But I think every single guy has his pros and cons, right? With Brent Vegan, the pros are his teams play tough. They are going to come at you, and they're going to keep on coming at you. They play tough. They bring it on the road. Obviously, they had an extremely tough environment at Montana, and they come away with a win. That's it's a great culture win. That's what it is. He brings that. He brings that blue collar mentality. And I wouldn't mind a few Montana State guys on my team. They play hard. The cons are, FCS. He hasn't coached at a program like Oregon State with the resources and the facilities. He hasn't done it yet. How will he adjust to that is it's always a gamble with any coach, but he's a little bit different because he's only been at Wyoming. So this is a big step for him, I think. Oregon State isn't some like big, wow, this is a huge job, but it's bigger than Wyoming, right? It's bigger than being the OC there. It's bigger than Montana State head coach. So FCS guys are always going to be a worry like that. Okay, then you look at Jamarcus Shepard, no play calling experience, no head coaching experience, mainly just a wide receivers, co-offensive coordinator kind of guy. But the pros are energy. Will recruit his ass off. It's good enough for me right now, dude. And I think he'd be a great fit. I think he would get it done. You would have to be really patient with him, though, just to get it right with his staff, all that stuff. And he has to hold his staff accountable at the same time. And with Paul Christ, the pros are he's going to come in and probably produce a competitor. The cons are he hasn't been around in a while. He doesn't know the NIL. It's just that's the problem with the old guys, right? It's the NIL stuff and just the portal. How are you going to deal with that? Because Oregon State is a stepping stone school for the players. If you have a good freshman, he's not sticking around. If you have a good junior who wants to play maybe a couple more years at a bigger program, he's probably not sticking around. How do you deal with that? How do you replace it? Those are all really hard questions to answer as a coach, but you have to have one. So my faith in Scott Barnes to get the right guy, I mean, the list seems okay right now for sure, but I just worry that we're going to go the too safe route and just end up with Paul Christ, which last week I said it'd be fine. I just think comparatively to the other two guys and maybe three guys that you're talking to, it's not the best answer. So we'll see, y'all. One more football game against Wazoo. 5:30 kickoff for me, 3:30 for you guys who are listening. I can't wait for this football season to be over, man. I'm just so ready. I hope the boys play well. I appreciate you guys for listening. We are going to have another podcast for when the coach is announced. We'll try to recap the season a little bit. We might have that big time guest that we have been trying to work on for the last like month or so. Hopefully he comes on next week, but we'll see. We'll hear from you soon. Appreciate you listening. As always, go Beavs.